Awesome. Welcome everybody to the Soulful Way, to our panel discussion on the full color of creativity today. I'm super thrilled to be joined, whether you're joining us live in our Zoom or whether you're watching the recording. We're thrilled that you're taking some time out of your very full and beautiful lives to join us today. So this is to tell you a little bit about the Soulful Way. We're on Substack, and the Soulful Way is about where values meet life. So every single month, we pick a value and we immerse ourselves in that, and we see where it shows up in our lives and where we can create it. My name's Jennifer Maki, and I've been doing this work in values action alignment for over 20 years. And I've just seen amazing results, how people transform their lives personally and professionally when they align with what really, really matters to them. And so Todd and I launched this a number of months ago. We've been going since about February with our month of themes. And we've been through values and presence and kindness. And today, in this month in May, is creativity. And then next month is curiosity. And so this is the first time we've done a panel. But because there are so many beautiful ways of coming at creativity, we're just thrilled to have some different perspectives and different ideas, and we hope that you just glean some inspiration and ideas to be able to put in place in your own life as you are creating in all the various different ways. And so I'm going to go around the room, and I'm just going to have everyone introduce themselves, where they're from, what their passion and creativity is, and then we'll dive into the discussion. So maybe Melissa, do you want to dive in and go first?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you so much for the introduction and for having us all here together. I'm so excited. And looking at the bios of our other speakers here, so much of this aligns and connects with me too. Creativity has been such an integral part of my life since I was a little kid, and in all these different ways. I actually used to write poetry as a kid. I'm writing prose now. I'm a yoga instructor. I have children. I do artwork myself, all these different things. What I've really been connecting with my creativity with lately is, and for a long time, is with earth medicine. So I've recently begun a journey with earth medicine by Melly Agrios, and it's a deeper connection to earth. I create all these different ways of connecting to people, to the earth, to ourselves through different types of earth medicine. So even when I'm like blending teas or I'm foraging or creating different medicines. Like I do a lot of medicines. I like a lot of natural stuff. Um, it's sparking my creativity in different ways than I did over the years. So I've had a few decades of creativity under my belt here, and I've just transversed so many different types of it through sound, through music, through art itself. Um, I love drawing and painting and stuff too. Um, any way I can create has been really, really magical for me. And actually, I wore this. I don't know if you can quite see,
Yes.
but this is it says abandon perfection. So this is a,
I
a
need to
shirt
know
that I
where you
got
got
back
that
when
t-shirt.
I got it from back when I was teaching yoga at one of the yoga studios. They had a bunch of that. I think it's Inner Fire, right? Yeah. Anyway, I love this. I thought this was perfect because when we're creating, we want to come from a place where we want it to be perfect and we want it to be exactly what we want it to be, but that's not what it needs to be. Abandon perfection and just flow and let the creativity become what it needs to be. And I think that's the best for me anyway. That's the best approach. So
Absolutely.
I
Okay,
do
so
that with my
talking about creativity, Meliagrios. Tell us what that means. How did you choose that name? Because that's creative in and of itself.
I know it's a weird word, but I think it's a beautiful word. So my name, Melissa, means honeybee in Greek. And I've always been partial to honey, to the bees, to the connection, to we need them to survive. Like it's bees are beautiful, honeybee is beautiful. And it relates to a lot of the earth medicines that I work with. Like I actually do incorporate honey, like honey lemonades and the throat medicine. It has manuka honey and different things like that. So I wanted to create some word, some branding. Years ago, I liked honey wild. Like there's this wild side, connecting with nature, and I liked that. Well, a few months back when I went start searching things up, it was taken. It was annoying. But
But
I've
there's
been
always a
learning Greek.
reason, isn't there?
There is. I've been learning Greek for the last year. Like I always knew my name was Greek, but I'm not actually Greek myself. And but a friend inspired me. So I've been learning the language for the last year. So I had this thought, well, I know Meli is honey. How do you say wild in Greek? And I looked it up and it's agrios. And I'm like, meliagrios. Like, oh, that flows. Like, I like that. And it fits. So from there, I can expand. Like, I'm doing the earth medicines and we do like a nervous system reset so you can incorporate all the other earth medicines and have them actually work. But I can go anywhere with this. So Milagros,
Absolutely.
we'll see where she goes, but that's where
That's
she came from.
so
Came from
cool.
me.
That's so beautiful. And it's funny, I wrote a book a year and a half ago called Just One Soulful Thing. And it's a simple
Mhm.
adventure in reclaiming your wild wisdom. And so the soulful way
Yep.
is I know when you and I met and we had our first coffee together, that's just, I just believe that wildness, that free flowing, that ability to just flow from that place of soul, or what we call soul, heart, passion. It's beautiful, honey. I love the name. I love that it's so personal, and that's creativity in action right there as you're building
Yeah,
your brand and your beautiful
for sure.
business. It's awesome. Thanks for sharing, honey.
Mhm.
Greta, do you want to go next, darling?
Sure,
Do it.
sure, definitely. Okay. So I was thinking, being on this panel, of course, made me like really kind of think back, like where did this begin? The questions you were posing in the email, and it reminded me of when I was a little girl. I was very, very imaginative. My mom was in school for nutrition, and she was also taking art, and so I'd paint with her. I always loved to
I
have
love that.
easels around. And I can't claim that I'm a great painter like she is, but that was the first thing. And then I started dance at age 2.5, and I was in the ballet. And my first job, my first money I ever made was in the Nutcracker. And I got to travel when I was a little girl. I was a buffoon. So I
Oh,
always loved
I
like
love the
fluffy
Nutcracker.
things. I forgot about some of these things. These are the things that really sparked my imagination. I really loved classical music. I still do. And dance. And fast forward all the way through my high school, I was a student. I had to be a student. I was in a military and engineering family. So art was basket weaving in
Yeah.
that time. And so I wanted it even more at that point. So I did drama, I did a lot of stuff like that. So once I had my children is when I really was able to, I was going back to college again. And I started doing more painting. I went into yoga. I did Reiki, all those things when they were young. I started playing with the camera, the Canon, and I have my cameras with me today, just for fun, just to do their kid stuff, at the school. I was very, very involved in the PTA, which is stressful, but it was great because I was there. And that's when I started taking pictures, and that's one that actually started to take off. And then I got offered to take pictures of our semi-pro football team here. And then I got offered to take pictures at Santa Fe Fashion Week. And then I love doing candids. I think that that is my major strength. I love catching people in their element. And I always thought I would love to work for National Geographic and travel the world and take pictures. Those interesting pictures around
Yeah.
the world, like the most beautiful eye picture, or like in Africa where they have all those things, like
Absolutely. I know exactly. We used to have
I
those
love
books
it.
on
I'm
our
getting
coffee table.
goosebumps.
Yep.
I would love to do that.
I
And
love the photo of you that was in your post where you're holding the camera. It's a
yeah,
beautiful photo. Like I love, who took that one?
Kidem took that one.
Okay. Oh, that's so cool.
Yes, and that's when we were in Istanbul, and we were on the ferry that goes on the Bosphorus between the Asian side and the European side. And
Yeah.
I had a blast. That was like one of the most creatively sparking kind of things. Travel, eat, pray, love that we were talking about really inspired me. It does make me, I still have a few more things. If I really wanted to do that, I could just sell my car and just completely take off. So I feel like stuff like that will happen eventually. And so this year I have just been trying to flow more with it and not be perfect, which
Yeah.
is, I tend to be perfectionist on things, but
Yeah.
like I learned how to make candles out of beeswax. I learned that that was my favorite.
Awesome.
I have a whole box of just anything. So I just kind of just to be able to flow and just having the stuff around me makes me feel very creative. It makes my mind work, but I think it's super important this day and age just because we have had such a focus on, okay, you're going to go into this field whenever you graduate from high school,
Yeah.
you're going to be a doctor, you're going to study this. It kind of just takes all the creativity out of it because
Yeah.
then ending up in the government job, it's not, well, it can be creative. You can be very creative, by the
Absolutely.
way, with policy, yes. But I mean, it's a different kind of creativity and getting people to really flow into it, I think is really important in this day and age. And as we move into a different kind of world, trying to
Absolutely.
move away from all of this.
Yeah.
You will fit into this box, you will wear this mask, you will do all the,
Yeah.
I think it's super important.
Absolutely. Oh, it's amazing. I feel all the little sparks going off inside of me with my own creativity as you guys talk. I love it. Isabella, thank you, Greta.
Oh,
Isabella,
absolutely.
can you share next? Introduce
For sure.
yourself.
Thank you so much for having us as well. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah.
Well, creativity for me like has started also since I was a kid. If I stop to think about it, I was kind of a lonely kid, a lonely girl. I used to love playing by myself. So creating the scenarios and doing like play pretend in my head. And I always loved like the tiniest details. It was me. Like, I don't know. I always loved like photographing as well when I was like teenager and everything. I loved like my mom used to say like, I have an eye that other people don't, like at least she doesn't have, you know? So I always loved everything around me, and it all came down to poetry. But it's been actually 2 years maybe
Yeah.
that I started writing poetry, but always the music has always been part of my life. I play guitar since I was 8, and I try to write songs since I was a kid as well. So I like to sing as well. So creativity is part of my life since always.
Beautiful.
Um, and then everything changed when I moved to Europe. I lived in Brazil my whole life, and then when I came by myself here alone to Amsterdam, I mean, I started actually understanding why I came. So everything started to flow. And today I also do collages and junk journaling. So I love creating colorful things. I love colors. I love rainbows. I love unicorns, everything that shines. So it's me. Yeah, and everything comes from the soul. Like I just feel things and I put in my collages, and I'm very happy that right now it's blooming in my life. Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. So many gems there. Again, like I'm sure I can see everybody nodding. I'm sure the audience is nodding as well too. Feel the little sparks like, oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, right. Like I just feel like that. Yeah, that's so beautiful. The kinship. We know why we're all here today and sharing. It's beautiful. Thank you, Isabella. Todd Maki, the love of my
Hi,
life. Tell us about creativity in your world and
good
who you
morning.
are in your life. It's
I will. I was inspired by my dad, I think, and I didn't realize it until we started doing this exercise and started thinking about the themes here. But if you met my dad in his 50s, let's say, he was a sales guy, sold rugs. He was a traveler. He traveled in a big territory. He's on the road. So on the surface, he didn't seem like a very creative guy. But he, when he was younger, he was quite a good hockey player. He made it to the Red Wings when he was 19, and so NHL so the highest level you could get at the time. So he never really manifested that into anything that was long term, but he was the most inspired. He always told me he wanted to be a dancer. He wanted to be like Fred Astaire, or sorry, Gene Kelly. Sorry, he didn't like Fred Astaire. He wanted to be like Gene Kelly, and he manifested his creativity in all kinds of way. And even in sports, I remember just a quick story. We were at the NHL awards. It was an event for them, and there was a pool table at the bar we were at. And my dad and I were playing pool against two other guys we didn't know. And he ended up, we had one shot to make to win the game, and he couldn't get his pool cue because of the wall. So he took his pen out of his pocket and he hit the white ball and curved it and knocked in the 8 ball to win the game. So that's fairly creative for somebody that's
yeah.
thinking outside the box. So anyway, so I've always been inspired by him. For me, I've have been involved in music. I've always been a musician. I play more sometimes, less sometimes. I played in a ska band in the 80s, which is kind of cliched, but it was fun. I've been involved in all kinds of activities. I write. I did my undergrad degree in history, so I learned how to sort of hone that skill in a particular way. And And in modern times, I'm working with the publishing company with Jen, and I've just written the first chapter for a book that's going to be out in the two books, the anthologies that we're publishing next week. And so that's kind of where I am right now. But I see creativity everywhere.
And your dad would be so proud of you if he saw you at the pub last night dancing, honey. You're definitely Gene Kelly.
I don't think that we call it creativity. That'd be creativity.
It was very creative. It was very fun. Thank you, honey. Yeah, Todd sparked so much creativity in our family, particularly from that music perspective, because we were saying in our talk last week on the courage of creativity on Sunday, we've always had a music room. Like if you saw me right now, we've got it actually everywhere. I said to Todd, okay, we're going to have to rein it in or find a different spot for it, because right now in our living room and in our dining room, there are amps, electric guitars, everybody's been playing around the house. So our house has always looked like this, where there's lots of creativity. And I've played kind of free flow music, but Todd's taught me so much. I really wanted to play the piano when I was younger. I took lessons. And then as a little kid, you like quit. And I was so bummed that my parents let me quit, because I wish I'd stuck with it. So I'm always dabbling and learning, but all our boys are very musical because of Todd. And you brought so much of that to our world, honey.
Thank you.
And as I was listening to all of you, it's amazing. I didn't know any of you 3 months ago, and how life brings people together, and how your soul, even though we haven't really had this, Izabella I've just met. We've just been dabbling behind the scenes on Substack. Melissa and I met at, on St. Patty's Day, ripping it up in the pub we were at last night. Greta and I met behind the scenes. Like we've always had, it's fairly new. And so individually, we've had these callings, this soulful connection, these ideas in our lives. And now we come together. And now I think every single one of us sitting here is nodding, going, I understand why I'm in this room right now. Like I get it. And so Izabella, I grew up, my sisters are 10 and 13 years older than I am. And so I was alone a lot. We grew up on a 20-acre farm. We had 4 horses. I'm actually writing my first fiction book, which is kind of creative, nonfiction really. But I'm doing fiction so I can have fun with it. But really, it's the stories of growing up on Gable Glen. My mother was a professional artist. She was a watercolor portrait artist. Didn't even realize how amazing she was until I grew up and went out into the world and just was amazed. My dad built on an art studio in our home that was just gorgeous, all natural light, this huge art table, glass, floor to ceiling glass windows for my mom to do her art. But there was a tortured artist in my mother, because, and I was talking a bit about it last week, is that she grew up, she was born in 1930, grew up in the 50s, got married in 1952, and then was expected to be a mother and a wife and an artist. And I don't know about any of you, but we all juggle that. But there were more expectations back then that you would abandon what spoke to you as opposed to pursuing that and really having a partner that would support that. My dad was unusual in that, perhaps unusual in some form, that he was like, honey, you got to do your art. Loie, you need to do your art. But my mother felt tormented. And so in seeing her beautiful art when I was growing up, I didn't even touch art because I was like, I drew my little stick figures. And I'd be like, oh, that does not compare to my mother's at all, right? Perfectionism, abandonment. I've worked on it my whole life. And my dad was a writer and a speaker. And my grandma was a poet, published a book in 1940. So I grew up with all of this creativity around me. And then when we were really diving into this theme of creativity, we've done it a couple of times. We used to have virtuous suppers where we lived once a month. And in physical space, we would come, and we've always kind of dabbled in this value work. But I've expanded my thought on what creativity is. And so as you guys are talking, I'm thinking, yeah, I was constantly doing my own play because I was alone on the farm playing by myself. And then when I look at, Melissa, I've always dabbled. When I had babies, I made my own baby food. I make my own hand cream, my own face cream. I buy things from all places and I make it. And I never thought about myself as being creative in that sense. I was just like, I don't love what's out there and I love all natural. And so I'm going to make my own because I can't find anything out there that isn't, and it's so hard to navigate all that's out there now for the cost and everything, that making things at home. So I suppose I was like, oh, maybe that is a part of my creativity. And even making meals, and we're plant-based whole grain, and we switched our diet about 20 years ago. And so making new meals and figuring out how to be able to make those meals so that our kids like them and will eat them. And then when our friends that aren't plant-based whole grain will want to come for dinner at our home, like that's a whole creativity thing. And then I actually, what drove a lot of my travel, like Greta and you and I have talked about, you want to travel and do more of that. But I lost 6 friends between the age of 16 and 26 that died for various reasons: car accidents, brain tumors, freak accidents. And so in my small town of 20,000 people, that was a lot. And I learned that life is fragile, and there's no guarantee of tomorrow. And so I think I never really thought I'd live past the age of 30. And it wasn't a morbid thing. It was just that I couldn't imagine a future, because Kirsten wasn't in my future, Jim wasn't in my future, Janice wasn't in the future. Where do these people go? And so it took me on a spiritual journey, but also a journey of, I want to live every second I can. And if what I'm doing right now, if I were gone in 6 months, if what I'm doing right now is not what I'd be doing, I'm going to switch it up. And if it is, I'll keep doing it. And so it took me to live in 3 different countries. I lived in Grand Cayman for 3.5 years. I ran a nightclub, which if you'd asked me if I would ever do that, I was an aerobics instructor. I took dance when I was a little kid. I became an aerobics instructor at 18 years of age, and I taught cardio dance aerobics because, that was a thing back then. And then just traveled. And photography, when you guys are talking photography, I've always done my own photography with a manual camera, swore I'd never go digital. And now you'll never see me not taking photos of my iPhone. And I base my iPhone on how great the camera is, because I have a professional camera, but it's too heavy to carry everywhere, and I take too many photos to carry it around. So it's just really cool how, when we think about this, it's so much more than perhaps, like, people think creativity, they think art, they think painting. They don't really think of all the ways in which we just take all of it out for a spin. And even, as you say, Todd, the publishing company, and we have friends that are engineers, and when they came to the dinner that we had based on creativity, they were like, I've been thinking all week, and I didn't feel like I'm very creative. Like, I'm not very creative. And then as I sat with it for the month, I thought, well, I guess I am, because I build bridges and stuff. And we're like, yeah, you are creative. More so than we could have, mind-blowingly creative. So it's so fun how all the threads of what has, sparked in our lives, and that there's no limit, as long as we're not perfectionists, there's no limit to where we can take all of our creativity out for a spin. So I want to turn now to talk about how essential creativity is to the human being. And so last week we covered this idea of the connection between creativity and wellness, and the fact that they've done lots of studies, Harvard, World Health Organization. They're now using tools of creativity to help people with PTSD, with alcoholism, whatever, those addictions are, but also in mental health and wellness. And they're using it now in universities, and talk about creativity to spark your intellect and that connection between your mind and being able to remember information, etc. And so there is that connection with wellness. And then there are dry spots in our life, where life sometimes becomes about survival as opposed to creativity. Life gets busy, we're going through a difficult time. Maybe we leverage, and Melissa, I think you're going to talk about this, maybe we leverage that creativity in times when we're struggling, but also there's dry spots in our life too when it's busy. So maybe I'm just wanting anyone that wants to kind of pop in and talk about that, and maybe Melissa, you want to start, because this was really transformational in this last while.
Yeah, that's actually an angle to creativity that had never really occurred to me until a few weeks ago when my older dog passed. So you saw Red, the young pup here. Well, he's 3, he's not young. But we had an old rescue dog. We had him since he was a pup. And when I got him, I told the boys, if we get 10 years with him, we'll be lucky. He's going to be a big dog. Well, we got 11 and a half. And he started deteriorating quite suddenly. And this dog had been on so many adventures with us. He grew up with my children, and now he's gone. And normal cycle of life. I know you've lost your friends. We've all lost people. We've lost animals. It's a
They are
normal
family
cycle.
members, though. They are
They
family
absolutely
members.
are. And in processing this grief, um, I sat with it. And actually, the social media was a different approach as well. That's not normally something, I'm not a big social media person, to be quite honest. Like I do love Substack and School and some other ones that are not as social media-y. But I wanted to create a post to honor Percy because I posted so many of these stories and adventures and stuff over the years and these memories. And in doing that, I'm going through the photography is a big thing for me too. Like I have nearly 4,000 pictures of him on my phone. So if you can imagine all the other pictures I have too. But going through and creating, adding music and trying to create this piece, this memento of something that we can come back to, that we can share, that we can remember. And um, it actually helped with my healing a lot more than I anticipated. It, I let out the tears, physically, um, mourning is really important as well. So in creating this piece, I I found healing. And then it was also creating a new way of living with the dogs too. So now that he's passed, I live with 6 dogs still and my 3 sons. And we're creating a new family dynamic. We're creating a new home. We're creating a new day-to-day life together. And even that's healing. There's still a memory of Percy still around. And other dogs are filling in the holes. But the creative part of processing that grief was instrumental. I think just sitting and crying wouldn't have quite had the same effect. And I still look through the reel that I made. I still look through the pictures. Um, and I see the world that he created for me and my boys. Like he was such an instrumental part of who we became now, 11 and a half years after spending with him. So
I love the photo where you have, and we featured that in the Soulful Collective, but the photo of where you're 11 and a half years ago, your very first
yeah.
photo with him, and then all of you at the beach.
And then the beach was 2 days before he passed. Like we kind of knew. So we made a special trip, just the 4 people and 1 dog, or 3, no, 4 people. Yeah, I did that math right. Because often there's other dogs or other things but we made it very intentional and yeah,
Yeah.
to see that before and after.
Yeah, and I had never thought about that process of being creative. Of course it is, but I totally, as I was reading it, I looked at that beautiful reel. It's phenomenal, and I just felt like I knew Percy. Like by the time you're done that reel, I feel like I understood you and your boys more. I got to see them grow up. That's the beauty of the creative sharing on social media that I've always gravitated to. For me, it was a scrapbook of just through the years, because we've lived all over. Our kids have lived in 10 different cities. And so because we traveled a lot and they kept friends, we used it as that. So when I looked at that reel, and then when I thought about your story, when my dad died in 2018, I did the same thing. I had actually, he was in Ontario, Canada, and we're on the other side of the country. And we had Todd and the boys fly in. My sister flew in from California with her husband and their children. And then my sister was in Thunder Bay, my other sister. And I had them bring like memory sticks of all the photos. And one of the most beautiful memories I have in grieving my father, which was like untethering from the earth for me. I didn't even realize how profound it would be losing my best friend, the first man I ever loved. And but I remember sitting at the table, and my best friend from public school, Karen, came in, and we were all poring over the photographs. And really it got to be about the joy of his life, as you probably experienced with Percy. It became about the joy of his life as opposed to just the hole that's there, that in the loss. And even as far as the music, like my dad had all this music that he loved. And it was difficult for me to know, because I'm 10 and 13 years younger than my sisters. And so even my sisters and I sitting down and me saying, what were dad's favorite songs in your era, at your time? Because they were different from when it was my era. And we made this whole playlist. And at the funeral home, my dad played Santa Claus for 20 years in his retirement. And so we had people flooded in with photographs of my dad, and my dad was a business guy like Procter and Gamble and worked for Ford and lived in Africa, like, and then he would became the Santa Claus, and so, and he loved it, never shaved the beard again. My dad was a clean shaved guy, and then as soon as he grew the beard and he became Santa Claus, much to my stepmother's chagrin, she would say, honey, cut it shorter because you look like Sean Connery. And he was like, nope, because when he traveled on the bus or on his bike, little kids would grab like mom and go, mom, it's Santa. And my dad would look at them and go, ho, ho, ho. And they'd say, are you the real Santa? And he'd say, I see the Santa sparkle in your eye. Like he does. It was so there was this whole element. It was such a celebration. And I didn't really think about that as a creative process. So thank you for that, Melissa, because I just viewed it and relived it in a whole different way. And, this may make you laugh, but we actually, to the point of, the coffin we got my father before he was cremated was covered in felt. You can buy these coffins so that people can draw all over it. And so our kids got to write a poem on the outside of the coffin. I wrote a message. Every person at his celebration of life got to write all over the coffin. I got goosebumps from the inside out.
I've
Right?
never heard of that. That is the coolest thing.
It was so amazing. And so I never thought about that as a creative flow. And so when I was thinking about what happened with you and Percy and your beautiful boys, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was a whole creative unfolding. So thank you for that, because I got to just relive it all again. So that's beautiful, honey. And Percy lives in all of our hearts now that we see that and we hear your story. So it's beautiful, honey. Thank you for sharing that. Izabella, a time in your life kind of when, creativity helped you heal, or also just like a dry spot in creativity and what what you miss and what you bring back in? Anything you want to share along those lines, sweetheart?
Yeah, I think what I thought now was about scrapbooking because I love, and it's kind of it keeps time, right, in paper. So because I'm so afraid of my biggest fear in life is like losing my memory because my grandmother did. So I try my best to like document everything. So I write everything, stories of my days, of my trips, and scrapbooking for me was like I found myself there because I save everything. I go to a new city, I document that travel. With my niece now, she's turning 1, and I made an entire scrapbook about her life and all my moments with her. So for me, it's like I document time with scrapbooking. And for me, like, and also poetry, I do the same. So I write poetry about everything in my life, and my journal is everything for me. So I just came back in my stories, my thoughts, but mainly my poetry, and I have everything there documented. So actually started out from the fear of losing my memory, and for me, it's like it's healing as well. So
Absolutely. That's amazing. And it is true. And again, like I'm sure everyone feels the sparks, and please feel free to jump in if you have thoughts. So as soon as you say that, I'm like, that's exactly what I've been doing, is documenting time from the time I was 11.
yeah,
And I wrote poetry as a little girl, like probably my first poem when I was 14, started keeping a journal when I was like 11. And I actually read through with our boys my very first journal with them. And we were having a howl because my poetry was so
precious.
dramatic. Oh my gosh, like the boy I liked. It was just like, oh, and I just spilled out the words. And my father, he was a poet. He wrote beautiful poetry. In fact, I'm going to be publishing a book of his poetry. But his poetry was so particular, like 7 lines, 7 words in each line. A lot of them, some of them, and he would work over a poem for months or years. And so again, I felt a bit of that intimidation. So I remember reading my dad when I was like 14, one of these poems, and he's just like, oh, that's lovely. But it was like so dramatic. But scrapbooking and keeping the thoughts and that's what I kept journals for both our boys as soon as I knew I was pregnant. And so there's like whole journals where I wrote every day for them. And then when so they both have a journal to keep. But then with 2 small boys, 17 months apart, like there was not a lot of time for journaling.
Yeah, I bet.
So I turned to Facebook. And so I've actually had to download all the Facebook and then I started a blog called 365 Days of the World of a Life Schooling Mom because I homeschooled our boys. And so I wrote the stories, but that's been that scrapbook for me. And then when Todd asked me to marry him, it
No.
was a really beautiful story of just spectacular nests. And so I scrapbooked the whole experience of what happened through that time. So, and I don't do a lot of scrapbooks now. So now you're inspiring me that I want to go
Mhm.
back and I want to
I'm
scrapbook.
obsessed.
Need to start again. And
Yeah.
I'm telling you, next Saturday, we're going to talk about it at the end, but next Saturday is our workshop and we're going to do a soulful show and tell. So you got to bring all your stuff that's
Amazing.
creative. I just want to have like a free for all, like just showing everything that you're doing that's creative in your life. So I want to see your scrapbooks for sure. I want to,
For sure. I bring
yeah.
it.
And
Can I just
Melissa,
pipe
yeah, I
in?
think,
I just wanted to say, Isabella, with the fear of losing your memory, I can so relate to that because my grandpa had dementia.
Oh, my
And we
grandmother
went through that
had.
with our family. Yeah. And it changes your whole perspective on things. And I love that you're documenting everything. So if you do lose it, you can remember. But at the same time, doing the creativity to document it is actually helping your mind to
To not forget.
potentially prevent it later. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is keeping, I do so much work with like brain and cognitive health because of that. And like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the plants that I work with, the creativity that I do, you know, bilateral movement and dance and all these different things, creating is actually helping your brain. So
Oh,
isn't it our soul
amazing.
hopefully,
knows?
yeah,
Yeah.
it does for sure. And hopefully you never do lose your
Yeah.
memory. But if you do, you've got that beautiful record. And I just love that you've
Exactly.
done that. I'm not a big scrapbooker exactly like that, but all the other things, absolutely journaling. And yeah, maybe now I want to start scrapbooking a little bit more too. I haven't since the kids were younger. So yeah,
No, right?
I love
It
that.
revives you. And even as
Yeah.
you're saying about the dementia, I think in losing my friends, because my friends will tease me about how many I take photographs at every event. And I do have some husbands particularly that look at me and go, oh good Lord, another photo. And then they get to the point where they look at me and they go, so Jen, are you going to send all the photos from the event? So it's funny, and people, even my friend Dorothy, the church that she went to when she was younger in downtown Vancouver, I said, I'd love to go because that's, I'm not religious, but I'm very spiritual. And I just love everybody's faith and where they come from. And so she said, she invited me and I went down to the church and I was taking photos of her throughout the church. And her partner, Dino, looks at me and he's like, there's so many photos. And I said, hey, I said, you know what? I told them the story. Like I've lost so many people in my life and life is fragile to me. And you never know. We may never have another moment together. And that's not a morbid thing for me. That's just, we may never have another moment. And I just want to freeze this little second in time. And so you do that when you go on a special vacation or you do it at a birthday party. And so I just want to make every second of my life an event, even if that drives other people crazy. And speaking of which, we have to do a photo today before we go. So don't let me forget. Okay. So Greta, you probably have some thoughts on that and others. Please share.
Well, yeah, actually just listening to everybody, I lost my grandmother actually to Alzheimer's right before Christmas this past year. And yes, I know it's been, I think part of just also I'm glad I had already quit my job or resigned at that point because my grandfather passed away unexpectedly right before her. So it's like they kind of went together. They've been together many, many years, but she was also an artist. She painted really beautiful paintings. I think that's where my mom probably
Yeah.
started doing it. She quilted, she sewed. And so talking about all of this, and that's why health is so important to our family because you can test for the gene apparently. I haven't done it yet because I'm a little afraid, honestly. It's almost like I don't want to know. And I'll just enjoy my life like to the fullest as much as possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, sewing is another thing. I used to make my own dresses in high school. And that was really fun. It was a really fun process. My mom gave me her really fancy sewing machine, and it's still sitting in its box because I haven't done that in so many years. But it's just, I was just listening to the stories about that, losing pets. I still miss my weenie dog. His name is Mr. Weenie. Um,
love that.
He was so he was so fat. And I know that you're not supposed to let them get fat, but he could get into everything. So he got really fat and
Sometimes they have a mind of their own.
Yeah.
they do. And he would come out one time we came home and he had gotten into this turning cabinet that dogs should not be able to get into, but he figured it out.
All the
He
lazy
got the
snoozing.
big Jif thing and it was stuck on his head and he's running around with it. And well, so that period of time, it also reminds me, some of the things that I did do during that time is I was on WordPress. Yes.
Yeah.
WordPress, and the kids were in elementary school at the time. So I had sometimes during the day, and I had this little coffee house, and I would just write, but it was based off of my pictures. So it was the photography and that is what truly got me through a very difficult part of my life. Um, because it took my mind off of it. It allowed me to put it into a different way and to change the perspective. I think that's what some of the art does. As long as we're not worried about it. I started to worry about candles too much, so I was like, okay, calm down. They don't have to
Gotta
be
find the
absolutely
balance,
perfect.
right?
I'm like, they have to have
Honing in.
perfect wicks. Like, I don't want any toxins coming out, like
Nope.
I had to make them perfect, right? So, but just letting go, I think that that really does help the brain connections happen, and the music is really important. And so, one thing I didn't talk about yet was that yes, I did. I put so much creativity into raising my children, like we had this big long table and it had this runner down the middle and I would just put the stuff out. So when they came home from school, it's almost like we continued and we were always baking things. And then yes, finding creative ways to make things healthy. I used to mush up vegetables and put it into their food and
However,
learned
you
that it
got to
was
get it into
actually really
them.
good. Yeah,
Yeah, I
so
think
it's everywhere. I
no,
think
no problem. Sorry.
creativity is everywhere, definitely.
I was gonna say that I think a lot about it because my sister has the baby, my niece, and she's trying to find ways to be away from the screens. So I think for me, it's gonna be a challenge. It's gonna require a lot of creativity to keep the child away from the screens and creating like activities and important things for the kid. So yeah, in the motherhood, you also have to be very creative.
Absolutely. And you know
Yeah,
what?
it's a
It
very
is
different world now.
yeah, it
Mm-hmm.
is. And it's a concept. I was just talking about it with someone with Dr. Tanis the other day, my client. And we were saying that it's being vigilant and replacing it with something else. Like we always had a backpack. We called it an extraordinary game changer backpack, an XG backpack. And so they would have these backpacks, and I would have Ziploc baggies I know it's bad for the environment, but at the time we didn't know any better. But the Ziploc baggies of these,
That's
like
the way to
all
go.
different fun activities. So I had like a Ziploc baggie of just like stir sticks, the long wooden stir sticks. I had a Ziploc baggie of Play-Doh, all different kinds of Play-Doh, a Ziploc baggie of crayons with markers. So we traveled a lot on planes, and I had two boys, 17 months apart. And our deal was, if you're not holding the stroller, you're in it. Because we had runners. And so it was like you had to keep them occupied. And our kids would go on these like 7-hour flights, and people would come up to us afterwards and go, I cannot believe your child doesn't have an iPad, doesn't have an iPhone, and they've been playing the whole time and did not cry at all. And I go, oh, let's work. Like, let's be clear.
That's
Because
creativity.
every time they start to fuss, you're like, oh, here's a snack. Oh, here's and a healthy snack. So it is that vigilance, but it is possible. And like, that's right, Greta. I'm so glad you raised that, because in life schooling our boys, I think I kind of did it a little bit selfishly because I wanted to go back to school because I didn't really love school when I was younger. I mean, I have 2 degrees, but I didn't love it when I was in public school and high school. And so I watched my sister homeschool her kids, and my nephew is on cruise ships as in musical theater. And like, he's like living his life. My other nephew is like a photographer and a fitness trainer. And so I watched her homeschool her kids. So when it came to me 10 years later, I thought I could continue on in leadership development training for other people. And then my kids will be taking my workshops when they're 60, or we could see what it's like if we just right out of the gate ran this thing called the Mad Hero Project, which is like Mission Me things with mindfulness training and, meditations. And then we did Mission We's, that was the family meditations and interesting questions around the dinner table and all kinds of creative stuff. And then out there doing fundraisers for women's shelters in particular. But that creative element with our kids was just, it was so fun. It was a license to revisit creativity. And I think for me, I needed that in my life. And, I think
Really,
that's,
yeah, it was a replacement too. I think that for Nathaniel particularly, because we didn't have TVs, we would show them stuff occasionally, but they certainly couldn't get up and watch TV in the morning because it wasn't available to them. So I remember coming down, and Nathaniel was probably, I don't know, 3 or 4, and he would get dressed up. He'd wake up in the morning by himself. He would put a tie on and a jacket, a
He had a
sports
corduroy
jacket
jacket with the little patches on the elbows.
yeah.
Had a teddy bear on the.
So he'd get up. He was going to work in his mind. So he would sit at the kitchen table, and we'd wake up in the morning, and he'd be drawing. Like he would just be drawings all over the place for hours. Yeah, yeah.
Hours and hours. It's so true. And I feel so great. And I look at it now, both our boys, the last camping trip we went on, they got into stitching. They just decided they wanted to like embroider their jeans and stuff. And so our last camping trip, here we have an 18-year-old and a 17-year-old at the time. And we're at the beach, and our boys have their sewing kit with their needles. And these are like really cool guys, like 6'1" and 6'2". And like Liam has like earrings and everything, and here they are, they're just like stitching their clothes. And I took a photo of like down the beach, and here these two boys like immersed, got their, music going, and they got their stitching going on. And I love that we've been able to just offer them that freedom. And because the world, and now that's not to say they both understand how much they're on their phones, because they didn't have them until they were 16 and 17. But they talk about how they wish they'd had less phones when they were younger, and they didn't have them until they were 16. And they say, I would not give my child access to, because at the time it was TikTok. So Nathaniel said, you didn't even know what TikTok was, but I would never let my kid watch TikTok. Like I would restrict it in our home. And they talk about it because even as little as they had, they still saw they see how toxic it is because they know a life before that. Anyway, Todd, it is your turn. I want you to share and talk about, how creativity's played out in your life, droughts and then the flourishing, whatever.
I thought mostly about when it was the most creative, and I think it was the time when I was in university, and I'm not really sure why it was that way, but it was just a time of awakening, I think. And so you go to university and you walk through the halls and you're talking about the Communist Manifesto, and you would talk about philosophy, and you would talk about all kinds of interesting things. And so it was a creative period of writing. So I learned how to write at that period because I was doing those courses. And I've always been a fairly good writer, or able to at least communicate through writing. And playing in the band, and the band was just a huge confidence builder at the time too. It ended up being probably the biggest band in the city that I was in at the time. We would sell out every time we played, but it was just fun. Like it was just fun to get up and play, and all this weird music that nobody had ever heard before. Because ska was just in its, well, wasn't it? It was sort of a resurgence, was in its infancy at that period, and I was able to sort of tap into that with the musicians I was playing with. Yeah. And just in public speaking, I was in the student union, and I was, I would chair board meetings, and it was mayhem. With, can you imagine, 30, 18, 20-year-olds trying to express their opinion at the same time in a board meeting. But it was really a prolific time, I think, at that point. And then when I moved, it became serious because I had to get a job. And then that all fell on the wayside. I didn't do much of that for probably, 20 years, I guess. But
I always find it ironic when you say that, because you worked for Disney.
Yeah, but
you feel like your creativity ended and you worked for, arguably the most creative, supposedly, place in the world.
Well, just a lot of creative people around me. Maybe I didn't notice it, but it was.
I think you're very creative with children music and your sales, relationships and stuff.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. So anyway, that's the sort of the most prolific time, and then but I ceased doing the other things. I stopped playing music. I wasn't playing sports. I wasn't
Yeah.
for quite a long time. I jokingly talk about living in Pleasantville, where it was just basically, it wasn't really a very exciting existence, but it was corporate and it was,
That was before me, ladies and
yes.
watchers, viewers. No, yeah,
Yeah.
very different time. Hey, love, very different. I love that you're getting back to that though now, from a perspective, right? I love that you're focusing more, you're wanting to. We live in a town where you can do more of that. You're playing hockey 2 times a week now, right? Creating and connecting with those people. And now, you're getting back into your music. And Todd, like, I never got to see him in an official band, but I've seen him play with our kids and stuff, but just different. But even you and I going a few years ago, we would go to this casino, not because we're just not casino people, like we didn't gamble, but they had a really cool bar there that live bands would play at. And so there was this band called Silly Wabbit with a W, if you remember back to Elmer Fudd days. So Silly Wabbit, and they were like an 80s band. And Todd got up and played New Orleans is Sinking by the Hip with them. They had him get up and play bass for that. And it was amazing.
Yeah, that was fun. That was
Yeah.
a lot of
And you
fun,
had a band when you had a band, Uncle Jack's Penny, and in Confederation College when you were teaching there. Hey, and did a
just
fundraiser.
moments, just comes and goes.
Yeah.
It's hard to sustain with life.
Yeah. I think these conversations, and I think all of you would feel this way. This is why we're doing the work with the Soulful Way. These conversations are often put on the back burner, or they don't happen at all. And we think about them in our minds, but we don't kind of dive into how it's affected our lives or why these values matter. And I think all of us now are thinking about, and I hope all those people that are watching are thinking now, how am I going to get creative this week? Because this fuels so much more of who we are. And I think with all the distractions, what leads into my next question for all of you, with all the busyness, all the divisiveness, all the distraction in the world right now, all of the insanity, we want to be vigilant observers to be able to see what's going on in the world. And we want to be compassionate thinkers, not turning a blind eye, talking about these things and trying to, whatever we can in our own way, to tend our own garden with love and compassion for those around us. But in this busy, crazy world at times, I don't think creativity or things that really are of value and discussions around that have ever been more important. And so I'd love to just ask all of you to think about and share about, why do you think creativity particularly is so important in our world today? So whoever wants to start. Love it.
I'll start. I'll say again, I kind of touched on it earlier,
Yeah.
but even in my little bit of world travel, seeing the areas there, I put it on my Substack actually. There's this picture on this wall in Istanbul, and it's in an area, very crowded area, but it says like make art, not war, and it's a really cool picture. And I was at this really cool restaurant with the same kind of thing just yesterday morning. I didn't realize that the back had this whole like artsy area with swings made out of actual chairs, and it like art and all this stuff. And I think it is helping people to, especially during right now. And I mean, I'm in the US, so it's quite choppy over here. And so just to divert attention from the negativity to something beautiful. And I think it really started up like the age of Aquarius, like the hippies protesting that war and making art, doing all of that stuff. And it's a great way to divert.
Yeah.
I think when we're in a hard time, to be able to divert our thoughts to something better, to something that's love, not fear. So that's what I think art and creativity, and also in the sciences, it's great. My brother, like I mentioned, works for NASA. He worked on that little helicopter that was on Mars, and he loves that kind of stuff. He took apart all like the vacuum. He took apart everything when we were growing up, which was kind of frustrating. He took apart
That's
my
so
portable
typical of
battery.
kids, right? That become
Yes, and I think I think that that's what will help everybody feel better as we go into
absolutely.
hard
I
times.
know too, people were complaining, some people in the divisive universe were complaining about that moon travel, like that experience around the moon. And it's so interesting that people won't complain about some of the other things that money is spent on and the insanity of all that. And then people would complain about that. And I loved the responses from people that were measured and, supportive about how essential it was to focus our attention on the future, on what is possible. And then to hear those astronauts talk about their perspective from space, to say, you get down close and you think you're different countries, different peoples, different civilizations, different cultures. You are not. You are one planet, and there is nothing. I got goosebumps from the inside out right now. So
I know, me too.
Me too, me too.
yeah. And that idea that it's one planet. And if we don't care for our planet and we don't care for each other, we may lose that privilege. And so important, so important.
Yep. And link it to
Expand on
that
like
as well.
what Greta said, I think I completely agree that to be able to divert into something more beautiful, but also in this world that is so divisive, we're looking for a way to disagree almost.
Yeah.
And tapping into that creativity, making something beautiful is a way for us to connect with each other instead of push others away as well.
For sure.
Absolutely. And I find that that's like Substack, that it is like, you look at all the people that have come on Substack. And it's funny because I think, Todd, you were saying something about, or Nathaniel mentioned something about like a troll or whatever. And I go, I don't ever see trolls on Substack. Like
No.
I don't see people breaking people down. I'm sure on the political channels, you probably
Knock on wood.
Yeah, exactly. Knock on wood. But I do, people are craving that. And even in building the soulful way, this is not a big moneymaker for us. Like, let's be clear. And we have a family to raise and university kids to put through university. And we've kept it accessible. I get a membership of like $18.88 a month or whatever, because we want it accessible. But I've never felt like we're doing anything more important. And I'm really hoping that it will continue to expand and it will start. And then we're supporting one another. And as you're building programs, Melissa, we're supporting that. And as Greta, you and I are doing a workshop in Santa Fe, and we're going to do a retreat in Santa Fe. And then we're going to go off with Leah, our other member, in Greece, and we're going to do a retreat there. And Izabella, we can come to you in Amsterdam, like whatever.
Yeah, amazing.
But
Yes.
it's all around these beautiful values. And how are we living this all the time? Because our world has never needed this more. Izabella, you were going to say something, and I want to hear what your thoughts were.
I was gonna say about the consumption. So we consume a lot at this moment, right? So everything is like trash, mental trash on the internet and physically. And then I think that for me, it's like a way to let it go. Everything that I consume in my unconscious, I just put on my collages and in words because I have anxiety as well. So I just put in words. So I think creating for me is also a kind of fighting the consumption of the world right now.
Absolutely. However, we can, my background's kind of in psychology. And so that idea and lots of years of studying psychology and personal development and, science of the brain, neuroscience, whatever we focus on, we get more of in our own lives. It's really important what we put in, because that's what we get out. It shocks me sometimes as I watch television programs and murder shows after murder shows after murder. Like, it is amazing to me what we are. If you were trying to destroy the human race, that's the kind of stuff you do. And because there's not that there's anything bad about experiencing that, but it's not weighted. It's not well weighted. It's not, you have to seek out the inspirational pieces, but you can find divisive insanity, train crashes everywhere. And there isn't a balance. And we have to find a way to balance that it starts with ourselves, but we have to find a way to balance it as the next generation. And our kids talk about this. And even in this develop, Nathaniel's working this morning and so is Liam, but they were like, oh, I'm so sorry we're missing the talk. Okay, well, I'm going to try and come next Saturday. Like, it is a dream come true that both our boys were here for the last workshop. Like, it's a dream that like I can be gone tomorrow. I've got it all, ladies. I met you. You guys are awesome. I'm like, if I'm gone tomorrow, everything's good. And I think like that. And it's like, I was like, wow, this generation that we're raising next, that they care about these things, that they're thinking about these things, so that it balances when they're having fun and they're watching, Dexter or whatever else, right? Like, whatever that is, it's not bad. It's just that there is imbalance right now.
Yeah.
Todd, what are your thoughts? He's our politics, history, Beautiful sports. I remember you and I reading the paper, Todd, when you and I used to go and we would read the New York Times or we'd read a newspaper and we'd have coffee. That was like a number of our first dates. And we don't read, I read 5 newspapers a day working in the public relations industry. But this was like a hot Sunday morning. We'd get the New York Times and you would always take the sports section. And I wasn't like, I play sports, but I didn't read sports and I don't keep up on sports. And I remember asking you, Todd Maki, why is it you read sports first? And what was your answer? Do you remember?
It's not, I won't claim the quote to be mine because I think it actually comes from Colin Powell. But he said he would always read the sports page first because that's where they celebrate people. And well, not if you're a Toronto Maple Leaf fan, but generally, that's where sports are celebrated. And it was always a positive place to start because you'd read something about some young 20-year-old that had this success or some 45-year-old that was still playing in some particular sport. So it was all good.
And now I get the Mackie Cole's Notes version, if you're old enough to know Cole's Notes, but this like the synopsis, because Todd, that's why I came to love sports, watching sports or hearing about sports, because Todd knows every story of
Well,
the
even
people.
one of our first dates, we were in Toronto at this Le Marché was a cool, funky restaurant. We went for brunch and we walked out, and it's right beside the Hockey Hall of Fame. And right outside the Hall of Fame, they have a display of goalie masks. And goalie masks were all originally they didn't wear masks, and then Jacques Plante decided he was going to put a mask on because he'd been hit in the face too many times. And some of them, there's a guy called Gary Cheevers. Every time he got hit with a puck, he would put a scar on his mask. And they were all different shapes and sizes. They were homemade, and they were just every one of them had an interesting story. And so Jen said, "Let's go inside. This is interesting." So we went in. We had for someone that's not really a hockey fan, there's enough interesting things in there to keep you occupied. But it's all about the successes of people.
I don't think I think you invited me in, and I think because we liked each other, I was like, sure. But in my mind, I was like, sure. I just say yes. What was the question afterward?
Yeah.
I was bawling my eyes out as Todd told me stories of these hockey players. We saw the old mass, or I remember they had a Wayne Gretzky room about how he grew up playing hockey, and I was in tears. And I was like, I never saw sports, and I was 31 at the time. I never saw sports as the human story. I always thought it was amazing there, and I played basketball in university and stuff, so I love sport. And my dad, when he met Todd, because we had no boys in our family, it was 3 girls, so we had no boys. So I'd watch baseball with my dad, but my dad grew up in Toronto. He moved back from he was born in Argentina, and he moved back to Toronto in this area where all the Argentinians and kind of like the Italians. So he grew up on Fulton Avenue, which is kind of a funky European spot in Toronto. And so the university or the Maple Leaf guys used to go down and visit where he worked in this grocery store, and some of them lived in this area. So he had a hockey stick that was signed by all the Maple Leafs in that would have been 1940, about 1939, 1940. And when he met Todd, I had never heard the story. And it was Gus Bodner. There was a few of those. You would know the players that he had on that stick, eh?
Yeah, there was a Thunder Bay connection too. Thunder Bay used to be Fort William and Port Arthur, and the Leafs at that time had a line called called the Fort Line. So the Fort Line was all 3 players that were from Thunder Bay, from Fort William actually, and Gus Bodner was one of those. And we started talking. He was talking about how he met Gus Bodner. He said, "Oh, it's really interesting. I went to public school with his granddaughter all the way through public school, because it's very hockey town, Thunder Bay, but." It brings people together. I think that's why guys get along so well, is they talk about sports, and it's all just about, they're either, celebrating or commiserating on a team that's not doing very well. I always love when I play, because I still play rec hockey, and every once in a while I'll wear my Maple Leafs jersey, and then somebody will come up to me and go, "I'm a Maple Leaf fan too," and you'll have an instant bond with that person, even though you don't know anything about them, and you actually there's a bit of a respect. So you pass the puck more. You're looking for the guy that's also a Maple Leaf fan. But anyway, it's an interesting relationship thing that guys do. Women do too, but guys particularly.
Yeah, I do too. I love football. In Brazil is a huge thing. So for me, fans from my club in Brazil are my friends, like instantly. So I get this feeling.
Yeah.
And I think that's just like this, like creativity, sport, these things that we can focus on, that allow us to feel a sense of lightness, a sense of joy, a sense of camaraderie with strangers. It's like we were at the pub last night before we went dancing, and we just decided, like, we dropped off Nathaniel and he's working at a restaurant, and we always park way up the hill so that we get a workout and then we go to the pub. So we parked way up the hill, and then we walked down to Charlie's, which is right on the waterfront here in White Rock. And so we walked down, and the game was on last night. The Canadians and Colorado were playing. And so we watched the game. But even that, we sat up right close to the bar, and they didn't have spots at the bar, so we sat as close as we could, because that's the feeling of community and connection. And then this one guy, when Colorado scored, he was like, he jumped up and he went, and everybody was like, in this restaurant and everybody's like, hey man, it's a family show. Like, he's like, settle down, buddy. And so the bartenders and the servers needed to say nothing. This guy was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And he was walking around apologizing to tables and saying, I'm so sorry. I'm such a fan. Like, he was like, I lost my mind. But it was just the camaraderie, and you're instant friends with these people. And we have to find ways to be able to connect and talk about these things that are fun.
Connecting communities in different ways. Like, communities come in all shapes and sizes. This is a community, and then, but everybody has, it's like a Venn diagram. There's how many different communities are you involved in, and how do they connect?
Absolutely. And it is my dream in the Soulful Way that we talk more in between the times when we meet. And we just really haven't done that. We started on the chat, but because I speak to everybody individually, we don't tend to get to know one another and talk behind the scenes. And I've actually looked at starting school for the Soulful Way. Not that I would necessarily sell programs and stuff through there, but we would meet there. That would be our community hub on school, because as I'm doing my research, it's an easier venue to connect and communicate and stuff. Whereas Substack is about people chatting when you're sharing something, which is beautiful, but it's not really a community hub. So we're going to make our way over to you, Melissa, and then we're going to support everything you're doing. And we can't celebrate each other enough in all of our creative pursuits. Okay, so I know we're going a little over time today. We normally do about an hour. I just want to go around the room, and what would you inspire someone to do? Your last words on creativity. What would you recommend? How can someone get involved? What is a little inspirational thing you can leave people with that they might try out or experience, or whatever you want to leave people with as we wrap this up? And Izabella, why don't you go first? I see you nodding.
Yeah, I'm thinking about. I would say, actually, I wrote down this before the session, because for me, it's the most important thing right now is coming back analog. Like, as much as you can, like, print your photos and put on paper and write your thoughts. For me, this is really important. I try not to use GPT anymore in my life, especially with my writing.
Yeah.
So I came back analog. I bought a thesaurus, a semantic dictionary, a rhyme dictionary, and I'm just trying to do it the old school way. So I think this is important for creativity right now, because we have everything so easily, right, in our hands nowadays with AI. So I was catching myself kind of lazy, maybe. I was just, even like correcting my English, because sometimes I'm Brazilian, so I speak Portuguese. So I was just send my phrase to ChatGPT, can you correct for me?
No.
And I stopped doing this, because it's better to speak wrong, to write it wrong, not to be perfect. So I'm trying to do it like natural way in my life.
Beautiful.
And it helps creativity flow. I feel like the ideas, I clean my mental corridor, and the ideas just flow easily.
That's a great phrase. That's a great phrase.
Yeah.
Clear your mental
Thank
corridor.
you.
Absolutely. There's so much studies. I have people in my workshops. We actually, the folks that have, been in the workshops, they get a soul of guided journal. And it's so important in my workshops, interactive workshops that I do with companies or teams or whatever. I have them write by hand. So we'll ask the question, go within, and then write it out. There's so many studies. I mean, we knew internally that it was essential, but there's so many studies now about how important that is to be able to write out in longhand. There's actually, what was it? The American Gods, the guy that wrote American Gods, he wrote the entire thing by hand. It's a very famous book. It's made into a television show. He buys a journal and he writes his book by hand. And there's something that happens in that. So I love that. I love. And I use AI for executive function, organizing things, business ideas. I couldn't do my job without it now because I have so many clients and a few businesses. And I feel grateful for that, but never in the writing. Never. Like,
Exactly.
it
Hmm.
Neil
has to
Gaiman.
come. What's
Neil,
that?
Neil,
Yeah.
Neil Gaiman was the writer you
Neil
talked.
Gaiman. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Neil
And I
Gaiman.
have like my journal with me. I don't know if you're gonna be able, but it's
Go
everything
right
for
up
me.
close. Go right up close.
Let me try.
There we go. We can see little bits
Yeah,
of it.
it's all colorful. You
Oh
can
yeah,
see.
there,
There,
there.
got it.
Yeah, so
Beautiful.
I just write everything here, all my thoughts, and I have it divided by like therapy journal and my poetry and my thoughts, and it's just a therapy for me, meditation. Like I focus on it, and I'm trying to not use ChatGPT anymore.
No,
So
it's really good.
that's my
Even this,
message.
what's that?
That's my message.
Good for you. I love that. Even last week in the newsletter, not this last one because it was the Soulful Collective, everyone is submitting articles, but the one before, I actually wrote the whole newsletter by hand, and then I took photos, and then I duded it all up with little like stickers and stuff. And then I took, tried to be able to make that creative
Yeah.
thing because that's actually how I prefer journaling, is
Yeah.
that it's all by hand. And all my clients, that's where we start off. They make a yes map, which is like a map of where the spontaneous you comes out. We call it yes for you evolving spontaneously. And so we do
Hmm.
this mapping session. And then, Dr. Tanis just brought her brand new journal because we're mapping out the next year. And she bought her journal and she came and we got all the colored pencils
It
going.
motivates us, right?
So
To
fun.
write colors and stickers
Yeah,
and rainbows. It motivates me to write poetry. So
absolutely. My boys tease me about the amount of stickers I have. I have like a
I'm
box of
obsessed.
I've been collecting for 35 years. I have every sticker under the sun. I'm like, yeah, we don't, and I can't help myself. I go into a store and I go, like, oh,
Me
those are
too.
beautiful stickers. I have to buy more.
Stationery supplies all the time.
So we're just little kids. We're just little kids.
Yes, that's the thing,
Awesome.
right? Our inner child working.
Absolutely. I love that. Okay, Melissa.
That's my message too, actually. I will say I love the handwritten part too. My course on school, I had a big debate about this, and I intentionally, it's a printable PDF. There is no digital copy of the supplementary workbook. So for the course, there's a big workbook that goes with it. And I thought about it. I'm like, nope, people are going to print it, and we're going to do this by hand, old school. If somebody, says something, but nobody has. Everyone's like, I printed my workbook. I'm ready to go. I'm like, awesome.
Amazing.
My little message though, if you're feeling stuck or not sure where to start or where to go or just need something, something I heard a little while back and something that's also, there's been little sparks today that people have shared that have made me sort of remember this. Think about what excited you when you were a child, when you didn't have to perform or complete or do. What got you excited? What did you want to do just for you? Do that. I think Izabella mentioned unicorns. I'm like, oh my God, unicorns and mermaids. When I was little, like I was drawing and playing and imagining all the stickers. But whatever, think about way back. What excited you as a child and just let it flow
Yeah.
and see where it takes you.
Totally agree.
Amazing. Amazing. I'm thinking about it already. Amazing. Greta, your message, darling.
Okay, I'm just gonna build on this same thing. Hold on. I
Okay.
just proved this is just one of my 10 billion ones. I have them everywhere. I haven't read on everything. But yeah, I love my colors. I don't know. It's just kind of hard to like go through, but I will draw
Awesome.
pictures.
Beautiful.
That's how I think. That's how I start. If I'm thinking about something, if sometimes the words don't come out, and that's where I start drawing. And then I have this huge bag of, and actually more. I have another whole nother one. I don't know where it's at right now. Of just like the alcohol markers, like there's even paint pens now, which I thought really, those are fun,
Yeah.
really fun. But
Yes.
just to, yes, like going back to your childhood, I mean, I used to like, I put it in one of my stories. I used to like building things for my Barbies. So like their ballroom,
Totally. Me
you
too.
know? Yeah. So I'm definitely dexterous. And I think that that's a really good place to start because I know that, if you've gone through like the studies on the brain and just this connection is so, so important.
Absolutely.
Like, especially when they stopped teaching the kids cursive in school. I don't know if they did that in other countries, but they
They
did
did. We
here.
did. They learned cursive at
Yeah,
like it was
mine did too,
homeschooled.
because I remember writing a note and they're like, Mom, we can't read that.
Mm.
Like,
Yeah.
why can't you read my note? Oh, we don't know. What is that scribble? I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, we're
No,
going
you
back.
need to learn. Our boys loved it.
But yeah,
It's like that's art.
They taught themselves.
They taught themselves. We
it's
just had
easier,
charts,
isn't it? But
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 that's
yeah,
amazing.
all of those things.
Just to have fun and just to imagine what the next creative thing is. Todd Maki,
Well, if
what's
you
your
want creativity, try to read my handwriting. That's a challenge in itself. Um,
he's a doctor at heart. The doctor of soul.
I stopped taking notes in university because I go back to read them and I couldn't tell what I was saying. But I want to tie Isabel and Melissa together. You're talking about doing something in an analog format, and as a child, um, it sparked in me the memory that I don't think I've even told you this, but when I was little, I was probably 10, 8 or 10 or something. It was Halloween, and there weren't really like the big Halloween stores or anything, so you made your own costumes. And so I decided I wanted to be Batman. So I made a full Batman mask out of duct tape. It's black duct tape. And
That's where our kid gets their duct tape art from.
yeah, I wish I had that. It was pretty ugly, but I wore it to school and I was very proud of that. So
That's amazing.
yeah,
That's so cool.
but I wanted to
Okay,
just
so what's your message though for people? Make things out of duct tape?
yeah, make things out of duct tape because you can
I
actually.
love it.
There's a show if you're not you if you Greta, you probably haven't seen this because it's a Canadian show, but it was called the Red Green Show, and he was basically, it was a comedy show, and he would go and he'd fix things with duct tape. He actually made a Hummer out of duct tape and two cars where he taped them together. But the funniest part was when he got stumped and he had a problem with his duct and he couldn't figure out how to fix it. So anyway, that's just
Oh, that's
yeah.
the very thing it's supposed to be for.
Exactly. Yeah, he's very funny.
Oh,
Um,
that's
I was
awesome.
I was reading yesterday the Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert Prizig. Really fascinating book. I highly recommend it. It took me about 3 years to read the first time because it's so intense and complicated. But I just thought about creativity, and I wrote this down so I could remember it. But he talked about he talks about creativity and values and all kinds of different things. But he sort of narrowed it down to this one line where it's the total identification with what you were doing, the state of mind that produces great work and great experiences. And I think that's what creativity is. Once you sit down and you focus your attention on one thing that you're going to create, then that's where you get the greatness from. Miles Davis didn't become an overnight success in jazz because he just decided he wanted to fiddle with it. He actually went to Juilliard and studied classical music, and because he wanted to understand the classicals and the theory before he could sort of go to the next level with jazz. So anyway, I think that focus on one thing at a time, just one soulful thing, is critical.
Like that plug for the book there, sweetheart. You're so cute.
Always selling, right?
I'm selling. See, Isabel, you have lots to learn. Isabel, you have lots to learn, right?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. So when I think about this, I think in my own life, it all goes back to the stilling. So, and I'm very busy in my life and I love that, but I am equally as an extrovert, I am equally an introvert. And I think while we use those terms to describe people psychologically, and we have those psychological constructs, I think every person is served by going within. And so for me, that creative process always starts by just stilling and becoming calm and quiet. And when that's difficult, because sometimes it is, I go for a wander. So my first is to just get into a state of stillness. And whether that's listening to classical music or some beautiful music without words that stimulates that part of the brain and gets your right and left hemispheres flowing. And when that is difficult, the wander. So the idea of going on a wander in the woods or by the beach or in nature, that idea of drawing inspiration and then the third part is the question. So being able to question within your just like you were saying, Melissa, what made you happy as a child? How will I be creative today? How can I show up differently in a unique fashion, in a unique way today? How will I play? today. And so I really feel like a lot of our lives, I don't believe anyone is an expert on anything, because we're the expert within, and we have that innate wild wisdom within us. And so stilling and wandering and asking the questions are really important to just bring out whatever is meant to flow next for you, and to follow that intuition and hone that intuition, because we can lose our voices in the midst of so many out there. And then the last one is your date, your creativity date. So I always send my clients on creativity dates to pick out their new journals, their new pens, their markers, whatever it is, to go and buy at least one supply that's new for your week, and then take that out for a spin. And so I know I'm going to be doing that this week, and connecting on that. And I'm just so deeply grateful that you spent time with us today. It's been an hour and a half, but it feels like it flew by. It was just such a quick time together, and I think we got a good thing going on here. Hey. So I want to take a photo, in the spirit of making sure that we have the memory in place, right? Y'all look gorgeous. And so we do a little photo. Awesome. Hopefully I don't get my studio in here. It's a very delicate process. There we go. Okay, ready? 1, 2, cheese. We'll do one more. 1, 2. There we go. Thoughts.
I don't know. I have to get cheesy on these things. I'm sorry.
I love it. Oh my gosh, my son can't take a photo that does not. This is normally his look. As soon as he sees the camera, he's like, Mom, and he just stares at me. And I'm like, I'm posting that. He's like, whatever you need. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm just wildly grateful to have shared time with you beautiful people, you beautiful souls. I hope I'm going to see you guys for sure next Saturday for the Soul of Creativity. Bring all of your soulful show and tell items for us to share. Please do share with your friends. Spread the news. Anyone you think that would be soulfully aligned. It's really not about the masses, but those that you feel would be soulfully aligned. For those that have, I'm not sure if our participants have stuck it out. Our participants have stuck it out on here. Gosh, love you people. And just grateful. Thank you for showing up live. For those of you that are watching the recording, thank you for your time and your energy. I hope that you found that this was inspirational, and you're going to just bust out all your creativity and all your wild full colors in this week ahead. So we'll see you next week for the Soul of Creativity. It's from 10 until 12 Pacific time. And then we have a 30-minute after chat where we just hang out and sip and chat and just have some community time. And then every week there's a Soulful Way newsletter you can connect to. And then there's the Soulful Collective that comes out once a month. And every Sunday we have a chat. So our next month is going to be on curiosity. So I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about that subject, and can't wait to chat about it. And thank you, Rebecca, just for always being here, darling. I have to do a special shout out to that beautiful girl. And Melanie, I'm hoping we're going to see you. Melanie C. She was at our last workshop. I hope we're going to see you this month. And just lots of love to everyone. Just lots of love. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much.
Mwah.
Thank you.
Yes,
Bye.
thank
Take care,
you.
everybody.
It's wonderful.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
I'm going to stop the recording. Is my recording?